volume is a measure of how much fits inside an object. So if I had a cube, and we'll say that the cube is 1 meter by 1 meter. It's a nice size for this example. So this is 1 meter, this is 1 meter, and this is 1 meter. So every dimension is 1 meter. We know that the area of something is in 2 dimensions. That's just a flat object. If that was 1 meter by 1 meter, you could tell me that the area is equal to 1 meter squared. So that's if it's flat. If I then pull it out of the board or add a meter worth of pages on top of itself to make it 3 dimensions, it would look like this cube. It's still got the same dimensions for one face, but it now has a meter of depth. So we can go from area to volume, and I would just say this is 1 meter cubed. So the simple version of calculating this is that the volume for a cube is just base times height times width, for example. So I could do base, height, width. A cube, they're all going to be exactly the same, so it's just base cubed. And the units are something cubed, always, for volume. It's always cubed, area is squared. So we know that we've got a 1 meter square cubed shape. What about now if I said I've got an object that is a bit bigger now, and I told you that, well, it's still a cube, but this side is now 4 meters, this side is 4 meters, and the depth is, I'll say it's 1 meter. It's only a meter deep. To find out the volume of this shape, I need to think about how many of my little 1 meter cubes that we talked about before will fit inside this object. Well, if it's 4 meters tall, we know that I can fit 4 cubes that way. Because that makes 4 meters high. If it's 4 meters wide, it means I can fit 4 cubes in that direction as well. So 1, 2, 3. So here I've got my 1 cube. I'll draw this straight up. So we're just looking at the front face at the moment. I can fit 4 cubes across and 4 cubes down. It's a meter deep, but my cubic meter, my little meter cubed, is only a meter deep. So that means that each of these actually fits the full width of it. So now all I need to think about is how many of these 1 meter cubes make up this shape, and I can just count them out. So I've got 4 across the top, another 4, another 4, another 4, and there's only 1 deep. So I've got 16 lots of my 1 meter cubed. Or I can just think about this as, well, that's the same as just 16 meters cubed. That is the volume. I can fit 16 cubic meters inside this shape, where a cubic meter is a cube a meter by a meter by a meter. You might also be able to see the shortcut here. I'll get the same answer if I think about, well, if it's 4 meters high and 4 meters wide, the number of cubes I'll fit is just 4 times 4, because it's 4 across and 4 high. 4 times 4 is 16. And now, if I think about how many can I fit depth-wise, how many are stacked front to back, well, there's only 1. So I times that by the depth, for example, which is just 1. That tells me, well, I can fit 16 of my meter cubes inside it, which was the same answer. So the volume is the same as base times height times depth. So if I go back to my original shape, and we're working with large cubes for now, but the same concept applies for just about any 3-dimensional shape. If I know this width, its height, and its depth. And I'll call them different things sometimes. This might be width, this might be depth, this might be height, doesn't really matter. 3 different sides. The volume is just width times height times depth. This is actually area, so it's just the area times the depth of the object, how thick it is. So all I need to know is, well, what's the area of a face, which is nice and easy, width times height. Now times it by how thick is the object, which is my D, and I get width times height times depth. So what about if we didn't have a cube? What about if I gave you something weird like this shape here? Where this is actually a triangular prism. Well, you'd think, well, it's not a square, so I can't just do length times width times depth anymore, can I? Well, not if I go on this face. If I go on the front face here, the depth is not the same because it's a triangle. It's not going to be square. So think about, find the area of the end, which in this case is this face here. Because this shape is just made of a triangle times by a whole stack of triangles stacked on top of itself to give it thickness. So if I just do the same concept and say that the volume is just the area of the base times its width. I know the area of a triangle. That's just half base times height. And now I just times that by its width, which would be this length here. And that is my volume.